Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this short video, we're going to be talking about how to paint a realistic animal eye. Now, there are many kinds of animal eyes. Wolves, lions, lizards, fish, birds. They are all different in their own way, but they do follow a few simple rules. They're all round, obviously. They're all wet, most of the time. So their light is going to be reflecting off of them in a pretty predictable way. Whatever the animal is looking at will be reflected in its eye. But of course it will be bent because it's reflecting off of a round surface, so you can't paint a regular window in the reflection of an animal eye. It has to be bent. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's paint some eyes. Actually, there's only one eye, but you get the point. Roll that intro. Now you'll have to forgive the fact that his eye is blue, which no owl has a blue eye, but it looked better than the natural color, and really, cat? Shh! Now you'll have to forgive the fact that his eye is blue, which no owl has blue eyes, but it looked better than the natural color, and as a wise man once said, it's my world, so I get to do what I want. Or something like that. Now, when I was looking for a good, clear picture of an owl eye, I actually had to look up a macro photo of an eye. Now, if you've ever looked at macro photos, you'll realize that there's a lot more weird shapes and patterns and colors in everyday eyes than you probably noticed at first, which horses have the weirdest irises, random side note. But the most accurate way I could describe the iris of an owl eye would be a picture of the sun. Take out the flares on the edges, put a large black dot in the middle, turn it blue, and they're very similar in appearances, with the most obvious exception being the fact that one of them gives you a sunburn and the other one is really good at catching mice. When you are painting and your goal is to be as detailed as possible, it is important to know little bits of detail, like this for instance. Right around the pupil, the color is pretty solid. But as it gets closer to the outside of the eye, some darker spots begin to appear, like it's grainy. Now, the best way to achieve this technique when you are painting is to take the tip end of your filament brush or something very pointy and take a little bit of paint and dab it, just slowly, and just keep adding the color in. It does take a while because you're not adding much paint, but if you're patient, this will give you the best results. I know I've said never paint on a white canvas and never paint on something that is the brightest color, but if you are using the background as your light source, then this is a good exception. Now, what I mean by that is if you're intending on using the background and taking a very thin color and putting it over, so in the sense the background will shine through, then that is a good exception to the rule. I guess you would call that glazing as a sort, but you're basically using that as your highlight and just kind of turning down the color a little bit so you don't have to put in all that color. Now, this owl eye had a darker ring of color that was separated from the black by a very thin ring of white. This gave it a little bit more contrast and depth. If you can, you always want to veer from your reference material. You always want to make your paintings as unique as possible. So if you have an opportunity to veer from your reference material, you're going to want to take it. For instance, change the eye color, make the highlights and contrasts and shadows more dramatic so that you're not painting exactly what the picture is, because if you do paint exactly what your reference material is, then you're basically just a printer at that point. As you get the entire eye filled in, you'll be able to see what parts you want to change. Don't be afraid to lighten up or darken parts of the eye if it's not popping as much as you want. And lastly, to make it look wet and glossy, because eyes are round, wet spheres, in case you didn't know that for some reason, we gotta add the highlights. I would recommend adding your highlights carefully, because it's always easier to add paint than take it away. And it'll be easier to see if you're adding it slowly and carefully, what parts you want to change, because you may be like, that's too big in this spot, let's tone this down. It's easier to do that if you don't have to cover up a lot of paint. So the rule I use is just add it carefully, because this is your final touches. When you're adding the highlights, you're just adding the finishing touches. Like sprinkles on an ice cream cone. You don't want too many sprinkles. Or maybe, I don't know. I actually don't add sprinkles to my ice cream cone. Now there's one more thing that is a good thing to remember. I've said in some of my older videos that there is a line between not far enough and too far. And it's the most important thing is to find where that line is. But there's a good rule of thumb. That line is much closer to too far than not far enough. What I mean by that is you're much more likely to go overboard and put too much detail and obsess over it too much than you are not giving it enough detail and not putting enough time in. Guys, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And also, if you would like to get notified when I post a video, ring the little bell. I only upload maybe at the most once a week, so I definitely won't be spamming you. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace out.